Hello and welcome to the latest vlog from bloodyflix.co.uk. I'm the editor Paul Downey. Today I'm going to be talking about the new documentary that's just been dropped by Shudder. It's called Horror Noire, which basically celebrates the black community's involvement in the horror genre. It goes way back. It's very in depth. I mean, it comes in just under a shade under an hour and a half, but it really gives horror fans a real history lesson about the way that the black community was basically represented early on, not just in horror as well, just in cinema in general. As bit part players, as stereotypes, and how that kind of morphed into almost being it became part of it, almost like a running joke, certainly in the slasher genre, of having black actors and black actresses play certain types of roles that basically would mean that they would be killed off either in the first reel, or they certainly wouldn't survive until the end credits. That's for sure. Them sort of things are changing now. One of the biggest reasons is certainly the emergence of Jordan Peele as this almost kind of he's come across almost like not a savior of horror, because that's it's I didn't think horror really needed saving, but it certainly offered a very different perspective of how things can be representative. Certainly with Get Out, Us looks fantastic, and obviously he's dipping into the Twilight Zone, and later on Candyman as well, and of course a look at black cinema from a horror point of view wouldn't be complete really without an interview with Tony Todd, who offers some fascinating insights into how we got the role on Candyman, and kind of the reaction since, and obviously his kind of journey as well. There's some fantastic actors who kind of share their stories as well. Loretta Devine, which everybody will remember from Urban Legend, who played the the hapless cop. She was fantastic, and you kind of forget sometimes people who've been in certain films. You think, oh yes, I know them from there. Ken Sagoes, who is synonymous with the Nightmare on Elm Street series, certainly a Dream Warriors, and lesser so in the Dream Master, because obviously he was often the first real. Spoiler alert. But it's been over 30 years, so if you haven't seen it by now, then really that's your problem. There's some other fantastic actors who kind of share their stories too. Ken Foree talks about his role in Dawn of the Dead. And also Keith David as well, sharing the type of roles that kind of got him going. Obviously, his first film was John Carpenter's The Thing, and in case people didn't notice, he was the only black man on set, basically, and it didn't make him feel uncomfortable, but obviously it's something that you recognise, and I think over time as well, I think them sort of things became the norm. It's more that this kind of dystopia was accepted, and it just became part of the wheel, basically, which isn't right. And obviously the genre and cinema is trying to change that, and films like Get Out, films like Candyman having a lead role, a lead villain role, having a black actor play them was certainly a big step forward. And we are now in a time where basically you can have people from all races basically playing different roles certainly within the horror genre, but also in cinema in general as well. The people who can be survivors, can stand up to adversity. Not a horror film, but obviously we've got films that nominated for Oscars, like Black Klansman, which for me was the best film overall of last year. Horror, whatever you want, whatever genre, it was groundbreaking. It was it was visceral, it was raw, and it was it's very timely. With there's a lot of bad things happening in the world right now, and it engulfed them in this kind of in a way that we hadn't seen probably before. So hopefully Spike Lee wins big at the Oscars. I think that'll be fantastic for cinema, and as well as for the black community. But going back to Horror Noire, basically we get a mixture of scholars, directors, actors and actresses kind of going through their roles, and explaining what it was like, because what we have films from the 70s, from the 80s, from the 90s, from 2000s, and obviously up to the modern day. Jordan Peele himself is interviewed throughout, and we get a real insight into how people feel about the the way things were, the way things are now, and and what can be done to change, things that are, have been almost stapled into cinema subconsciously as well, by people, maybe didn't understand what, if there was an issue, but you look back on things, and some of it makes you wince. We look at the black exploitation era, with a lot of Pam Grier films, but also the kind of emergence of things like Blackula, which obviously was a success to a point, but in terms of where the money was being siphoned, it certainly wasn't being siphoned to the people who were actually working on the film. It was more the kind of the studio that kind of won out there, and that can be true of a lot of things that with the studio system, I suppose. But yeah, I think it's a fascinating documentary. It's a real, it touches a nerve, I think, and you get sucked into this narrative, and it just leaves you wanting more. It's a fantastic watch, and obviously, Shudder's only $4.99, I think, a month in the UK to subscribe to, and they've got some really good content on there right now. So I'd certainly recommend going to check it out and seeing, check out Black Noir, check out what else they've got on there. There's a real variety of different horrors from all over the world as well. And this is just this is the icing on the cake. It's a fantastic watch. It's certainly one of the most impressive documentaries, horror or any otherwise, that I've seen in a long time. So yeah, Horror Noire, check it out on Shudder now. And thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.